Good, said Dick, looking upwards. The sun will be out again soon. We can warm ourselves then and get dry, and maybe we can find out what that poor ship is. Oh, Julian, I do so hope there was nobody in it. I hope they've all taken to boats and got safely to land. The clouds thinned out a little more. The wind stopped roaring and dropped to a steady breeze. The sun shone out again for a longer time, and the children felt its welcome warmth. They all stared at the ship on the rocks. The sun shone on it and lighted it up. There's something queer about it somehow, said Julian, slowly. Something awfully queer. I've never seen a ship quite like it. George was staring at it with a strange look in her eyes. She turned to face the three children, and they were astonished to see the bright gleam in her blue eyes. The girl looked almost too excited to speak. What is it? Asked Julian, catching hold of her hand. Julian, oh Julian, it's my wreck! She cried, in a high excited voice. Don't you see what's happened? The storm has lifted the ship up from the bottom of the sea, and has lodged it on those rocks. It's my wreck. The others saw at once that she was right. It was the old wrecked ship. No wonder it looked queer. No wonder it looked so old and dark, and such a strange shape. It was the wreck, lifted high out of its sleeping place and put on the rocks nearby. George! We shall be able to row out and get into the wreck now! Shouted Julian. We shall be able to explore it from end to end. We may find the boxes of gold. Oh, George! Chapter 7. Back to Kieran Cottage. The four children were so tremendously surprised and excited that for a minute or two they didn't say a word. They just stared at the dark hulk of the old wreck, imagining what they might find. Then Julian clutched George's arm and pressed it tightly. Isn't this wonderful? He said. Oh, George, isn't it an extraordinary thing to happen? Still George said nothing, but stared at the wreck, all kinds of thoughts racing through her mind. Then she turned to Julian. If only the wreck is still mine now it's thrown up like this, she said. I don't know if wrecks belong to the Queen or anyone, like lost treasure does. But after all, the ship did belong to our family. Nobody bothered much about it when it was down under the sea, but do you suppose people will still let me have it for my own now it's thrown up? Well, don't let's tell anyone, said Dick. Don't be silly, said George. One of the fishermen is sure to see it when his ship goes slipping out of the bay. The news will soon be out. Well then, we'd better explore it thoroughly ourselves before anyone else does, said Dick, eagerly. No one knows about it yet. Only us. Can't we explore it as soon as the waves go down a bit? We can't wait out to the rocks, if that's what you mean, said George. We might get there by boat, but we couldn't possibly risk it now, while the waves are so big. They won't go down today, that's certain. The wind is still too strong. Well, what about tomorrow morning, early? Said Julian. Before anyone has got to know about it? I bet if only we can get into the ship first, we can find anything there is to find. Yes, I expect we could, said George. I told you divers had been down and explored the ship as thoroughly as they could, but of course it is difficult to do that properly underwater. We might find something they've missed. Oh, this is like a dream. I can't believe it's true that my old wreck has come up from the bottom of the sea like that.